Gus was born November 25, 1915 in New London, Connecticut. He was the firstborn child to Rose and Carl Bivona. The family soon moved to Stamford, Connecticut, and that's where Gus started his musical career.
I started fiddle when I was 6 years old.
Really?
And I played fiddle till I was about 15. On and off. And finally got a saxophone. My mother sneaked one for me. Didn't want my father to know it. So that was the beginning of being a reed man. Well, my mother dug Rudy Valley. And she liked the way he held the saxophone. When he was singing, he'd put it around to his back, hooked to the strap around his neck. And she thought that looked pretty good. Better than playing fiddle.
Well, I went from high school with a band named Jimmy Monaco out in Long Island, and I lived in Stamford, Connecticut at the time. I went right from high school to Jimmy Monaco's band.
So that was the beginning. $13 a week, living away from home, and we made it good. I used to send $8 home. From Jimmy Monaco, I went with Hudson DeLange.
Joe Dixon and Mike Doty both quit Bunny at the same time. Mike Doty was the lead alto man, Joe Dixon was the clarinet player. Georgie All and I took a few lessons from Norman Bates in New York and became friends. And he recommended me to Bunny, and I went over and played the lead alto chair and the clarinet chair at the same time, which was pretty rough in those days, being a kid. But it worked out pretty good. Funny thing, the night I joined the band, the day of the night, I called Bunny and asked, Bunny, I'm joining your band tonight. Nobody told me what kind of a uniform to wear. He says, well, do you have a brown suit? I said, no. He says, well, how close do you have? I said, well, I've got a dark green. He said, that's close enough.
With Teddy Powell for a while.
That was before Benny Goodman, yeah. And that was an unbelievable band. He hired a bunch of guys and we played on 52nd Street. We followed Count Basie into the famous door and broke it up. Teddy had a wonderful band. We made a lot of records. And Teddy was a beautiful guy. Every time you'd want to quit the band, he'd go out and buy you shirts and ties and bribe you into staying. So I ended up with a lot of shirts and ties.
let's again back to the career after Teddy Powell. As I recall, you had your own band about this period. Is this true?
Yes. I worked in a place on Route 1 between New York and Connecticut in some nightclub there forgot the name of the club. Anyway, we weren't drawing too many people. Mussolini was making a lot of trouble in Europe, and the name out in the front of the club says Gus Bivona and his orchestra. So the boss came to me and says, we've got to change that name, you're ruining my business. So we figured we were either going to call me Guy Beverly or Gus Bennett. So we went with Gus Bennett, and business didn't pick up a bit. So the whole thing folded.
That folded when Benny Goodman made an offer, because I hadn't had money for so long. And Benny made me the offer. I gave up the band and went with Benny.
Pee Wee Monty came to me one day, and Benny had just come back from the West Coast, and he was rehearsing a new band. So Pee Wee Monty asked me if I would just rehearse with the band and play baritone sax, which I hated. I said, I don't have a baritone sax, and I hate to play baritone. He said, please do me a favor, just do a rehearsal or two. So I did, and the band was so good, Benny moved me over to lead alto, and I stayed with the band. And that was one of the best kicks of my life. I loved to play clarinet so much, I had to leave Benny, and I used to tell a story. My musician friends would ask me, how come you're leaving Benny Goodman to go with Jan Savitt? I said, well, Benny won't split the clarinet book with me, which was a big joke, and everybody got a laugh out of that. Even Benny got a laugh out of that. And I went with Jan's band because he had one good band and a bunch of my friends in the band, and the price was right, and he was going to the West Coast, which made it even more. I loved it. I couldn't turn it down. So I joined.
In 1941, when Gus joined Jan Savitt's band, there was a band member that caught his eye in a special way. She was the featured singer in the band, Ruth Robin. They hit it off in a big way and were married on October 20th, 1942. After 44 years of marriage, his beloved Ruth passed away in June 1987.
Even if we played 1 o'clock jump, he'd conduct it. He was a born long-hair musician, and he loved to conduct. So that was his job with the band, and he did a good job. He always had a good band, excellent band, and a sweetheart of a guy. Let's see, it was a 14 or 15-piece band, and there had to be 10 or 11 Italians in the band. And when we'd start a road tour from New York, we'd go shopping and buy salamis and pepperonis and cheeses, and it'd be in the wintertime, and we'd hang them in the window of the bus to keep cool, because the bus windows were always frozen. We'd buy pecks of onions, and we'd buy garlic, too, to stomp on it so the back of the bus would smell like an Italian restaurant. And all the Italians sat in the back of the bus, and we ate beautiful. We had salami and wine, and we'd eat raw onions like apples. And when they'd stop to go to a restaurant, we'd stay in the bus and eat right there. And all the guys in the front of the bus that weren't Italian were jealous. West Coast, and Abe Most was with Les Brown at the time, and he got drafted. So Les asked Billy Butterfield and I if we would join his band, and we joined, because I know I was getting hot with the draft and I better do something. So my friend Ray Tucci was already in the Navy, stationed at the Glenview Naval Air Station in Chicago, and he called me a few weeks before and said, "I've got a wonderful deal if you want to join the Navy." So I stayed with Les a few months till we got to Chicago. I quit the band there, and I borrowed $50 from Les because I was broke, and joined the Navy, and stayed in the Navy 3 years, and that was a pretty good experience too. At Glenview Naval Air Station band, I was the leader of the dance band, and when we got sea duty, we went out to sea with this band, and the Admiral insisted that he'd have this band on that ship, because although we were doing a lot of bond rallies in Chicago and raising a lot of money, the Admiral won and we all went out to sea, and we hardly ever blew another note. Well, there were a lot of air checks, because we had a program called Sky High once a week from Glenview, a half-hour show. It was about the Naval Air Force, and I know there are a bunch of air checks in Chicago somewhere, but I wouldn't know where to find them. And it was a good band, bunch of Chicago studio men, the best. After the war, I went in to see Tommy Dorsey at the 400 Club in New York. I still had my sailor suit on, and Tommy waved me in he could see me from the bandstand. He called me over to the bandstand and asked if I'd join the band. Buddy DeFranco was leaving. So I made a deal with Tommy, and I joined his band, and stayed with him for 3, 4, 5 months, till we got to the West Coast. Then when he left the West Coast, I left him and stayed out there. 'Bob Crosby had a real good band. All the guys that hung around Vine Street were in Bob Crosby's band. He played the Palladium and all the local not nightclubs, ballrooms. And I really enjoyed. We did one-nighters up north, and from Bob Crosby, I went to MGM Studio. In 1947, I used to sit in at a jazz club on Ventura Boulevard that Doc Rando, Nappy Lamar, and Nani Bernardi, they owned this club called Club 47. And I used to go out there almost every night to sit in. It happens that MGM was making a picture called Song of the Thin Man, featuring a drunken clarinet player and a sober clarinet player. So they came and heard me and booked me for that picture, and I played clarinet for Keenan Wynn and Don Taylor, And through that, I got a contract at MGM and stayed there 22 years and got to play with everybody. That was really the biggest thrill of my life. Steve lived across the street from us in 1949, and he had that radio show on CBS, I think. And being a friend, he used to mention the gangster Gus Bivona from Van Nuys. And from that, my name got bandied around, and I got to make albums. When he went to New York and did the Tonight Show, whatever skit he did, he always had a Gus Bivona in there, whether it was a plumber or a football player. And all of a sudden, Ralph Martiri, who was an A&R man besides being a leader for Mercury, said, let's make an album, and we did. And then I made an album of 12 of Steve Allen's tunes, and that was it.
And now here we are introducing our round table swingers. We're going to present for the first time on TV now a musical group that has never been to Russia. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, on his way to Caparella's in Buffalo, here is Terry Gibbs on the violin. And there's a large convention here tonight of Bivonas. This is Gus Bivona on clarinet. Right over there playing the guitar, we have Mr. Mundell Lowe. On drums, Gary Coleman. On bass, Gary Peacock. And on trumpet, Henry Fonda. Here he is. Well, now that we're all gathered together here, fellas, what are we going to play?
Why don't we play a little of that, what's that tune?
Velvet Eyes?
Velvet Eyes is good.
So why don't we play the Round Table Blues?
How about Night and Day?
Gee, Henry, that's a good tune, all right, but could we play something that jumps a little more?
Steve, when I play Night and Day, you jump.
Well, there's something to that, but...
Well, as a matter of fact, you know, it's the best thing in my repertoire.
Well, gee, Henry,
Let's put it this way, it's the only thing in my repertoire.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, featuring Hot Lips Fonda, here's our special arrangement of Night and Day.
Terry Gibbs. Gus Bivona. Nice work if you can get it. Nice work if you can get it. Yeah, just imagine someone waiting at the cottage door, where two hearts become one. Who could ask for anything more? Loving one who loves you, and then taking that vow. Nice work if you can get it. Nice work if you can get it. And if you get it, won't you tell me how? Tell me how, tell me how. do-da-do-da-do-do-do.
Lately, Gus has been doing concerts with symphonies around the world. Here's an excerpt from a concert he performed a couple of months ago with the Boston Pops Orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the great Gus Bivona.